So thanks for joining today. For me, it's evening, but depending on where you are, it could be morning or afternoon. So thanks for joining. Today we're going to run through our P6-Loader, and this is a new version that we've got, and it's our version 11. So I'm Nicole Jardin. I'm the CEO of Emerald Associates. I'm usually in Calgary, but today I'm joining you from Montreal. And I'll do the introduction while Sue Hopkins, one of our implementation specialists, is joining us from Wyoming, and she gets the fun part of showing the software. The new version is pretty exciting for us. So I hope that you also enjoy it and see some potential ways that you can make P6 better for your team. So let's jump right in. What are some of the things that people struggle with P6? P6 is a fantastic tool, very popular, can do so many great, strong things, but there are typical things that people struggle with. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a poll question at you. If you want to respond, please go ahead and feel free to do that. So what are some of the things that you struggle with in P6? Do you find building schedules time-consuming, maybe keeping the data straight, dealing with baselines and updates to baselines, or progressing, so updating? These are some of the common things that people have given us feedback that they might struggle with. So if you want to go ahead and answer, you go ahead, and I'll show the results. I'm not quite sure how it shows up. I think you're just able to pick the item that you want to choose. Okay, so we have a few people that answered and some that didn't. That's all right. I'll go ahead and show some results. So these are pretty much the common ones that we find. So keeping data clean in P6, administering it, is definitely one of the common struggles. So it depends, of course, on how your P6 is set up. But let's say you're in a corporate environment, lots of different projects, possibly with lots of different groups, different plants, different operational divisions. Taking care of P6, making sure it's clean, not getting lots of different things into it that you don't want, that can be a challenge. Building projects from scratch, especially large projects with different contributors, different collaborators, and making sure you're baselining those properly to always be showing the appropriate baseline. Those things can be challenging in P6. The other thing is we've got feedback from many groups over the years that they would like to see data from other systems in P6, but building integrations and things like that can also be a struggle, especially depending on whether you use lots of other different tools. So I thought I'd ask one more quick poll question on whether or not you do actually have tools that you're integrating into P6. The most common ones are on their estimating systems, cost control systems, engineering design type updating systems, ERPs, and accounting. These are the most common ones that people want to see data from, but they may not be easily able to get that data from those systems. Again, if you have a chance, go ahead and answer that. It's just interesting to see what some of the common struggles are across the attendees. So some of our clients using the tool, using P6-Loader, actually built integrations in them. So there's a few of our clients that's how they used it. Especially if you're using old, maybe legacy systems that aren't that easy to work with. Now, the whole point here with P6 is to be able to provide all the team players what they need to be able to run the project efficiently. So team engagement is truly important. Getting updating done efficiently, making sure people see their tasks. These are all things that we all struggle with to different degrees within the software. So P6-Loader can help with a lot of all those different elements, and we'll touch on the data points and things like that that P6Loader does. So ultimately, you're running your projects better and getting that consistent portfolio of information, schedule updating, cost performance, schedule performance, these sort of metrics coming nice and consistently. It's not easy to do all those things as well as you can if you're struggling with the data and managing the data, getting the data in, keeping it clean so that you're getting all the proper outputs. P6Loader was built to help with all of those aspects inside P6. Let me just explain a bit about how it works, and then Sue will jump in and actually show you live some of the new features of our version 11 and some of the main things that people take advantage of in P6Loader. So in terms of deploying P6Loader, it's a tool that uses the P6 web services components. So it can be deployed on-premise, a hybrid on-premise and cloud mix, or fully cloud-based deployment. So you can deploy it in any of those kind of situations. It is a web-based tool. It doesn't have to sit on your desktop. And so that makes it very easy for IT to manage. So the way that P6Loader works is we access pretty much all of the data elements in P6. We're well over 99%. Global data, resource roles, project activity information, and all the dictionaries, in global calendars, things like that in global data. And then there's some additional utilities for importing XCRs and things like that that we also have in P6Loader. So the way that you will see Sue show you how it works is you extract data, and you can pick what data you want to pull out. And in this version, you can control the fields that you're taking out. We're hoping to get filtering of data in the next little bit. But, and you can take the data out, you can work with it in Excel, and then you can push it back in after you've done the Excel, whatever that looks like for you. Okay. Now, the key thing that makes P6Loader different to P6 importing and exporting is we can access many projects at once, all in one spreadsheet, and many topics at once, all in a very simple, a little bit more streamlined, user-friendly way of working with the data. So to me, that's hugely important, and that's really why we made P6Loader. There's no point in us spending energy building tools if P6 does it already. So it was to allow you to grab more than one project at once in one place, so it's much easier to work with. Now, I mentioned some of our clients use P6Loader for integrations, so that's definitely something that we've done a lot of. And in some cases, we've done macros inside of those Excel sheets to massage the data, get it in the format P6 wants it to come into. And then you can upload it, and off you go. I mentioned this is our version 11 of the software. So some of the key features that are new to this version are any of the version 20 new elements that Oracle has put into P6. And those include the role codes, the role rate limits, the resource assignment codes they've added to the new version. These are some great features. I'm really excited at some of these improvements they've made to version 20. Financial periods would be another. And another key feature in version 11 is going to be the column controls on the outputs. And Sue will show you some of that when she shows you the software. So I'm going to hand it over to Sue. She's going to give us a look at how the software works. Let me switch over and hand it over to her. Okay, I'm transferring it over, Sue.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen so that we can see some live action here with P6-Loader. So there are many things that we can do with P6-Loader. I'm just going to touch on several of them that we do find are common, I guess, for people and companies to want to kind of work with the data. Now, on the administration side, we have some clients who spin up new databases for their clients as they go along. So they really need kind of a fast way, an easy way to actually get information into a new database and ready to use. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm actually going to I'm setting up a new database. And what I need for this database to get started off is an OBS structure for my database, as well as an EPS structure. So right now, there's nothing in there. And to make it easier on myself, I actually have a database that is very similar to what I need to set up in this new one. So I'm going to take the information from another database for the EPS and the OBS. I'm going to extract it out, clean it up, and load it into that brand new one and really get that new one off and running very quickly. So first, let's take a look at P6-Loader and what it kind of looks like and how we would extract the information. So just like Primavera, we can point to several different databases. So I'm actually going to select the database that I'm going to pull the information from. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. Now this is our new user interface here. It's made it a little bit easier to navigate around and to find exactly what you need in specific spots. So first of all, we're gonna take a look at this extraction piece. So on the left-hand side here, I've got a few options. So I'm gonna go into the extraction. And what I find here is that I have all the modules listed that I am able to extract. So as Nicole mentioned, we can access about 99% of the information in Primavera. And that includes our user information, as well as all that global information that's out there that is really tough to get to, roles and resources, as well as risk information, project information, and activity information. Now, we also have some utilities that Nicole also mentioned, and some of those utilities are called usage sheets. And what these usage sheets do is they assist in the cleanup of your database. We all know that as a database is older and older, you tend to get some extra information in there. Maybe you have retired some codes, don't use them anymore. Maybe you've got UDFs that are no longer pertinent, calendars that you want to clean up. These usage sheets are actually going to go out and they are going to tell you where in the case of, let's say, an activity code, where an activity code is used in a project, as well as how many times. So you can tell, is it on, several activities? Is it on no activities? Whatever. So this is going to help you to identify those ones that maybe you could either combine if you have some duplicates, or maybe you just need to get rid of them. They're old, obsolete codes. Now, in our case, we are going to be just bringing out global information. So we're going to do our OBS and our EPS. Now, if I had project information that I wanted to extract out, I actually have my EPS structure over here on this right side. And in both of these cases, I can actually do a search. So if I'm looking for a particular project, I can search for the project. If I'm looking for a particular module, I can search for the module without having to open up all of these items. We'll look at this a little bit more. I'll show you the search in a later extraction that I'm going to show you. So we're going to extract OBS and EPS. So I've checkmarked those, and I'm going to tell P6Loader to extract that information for me. Now it's going to go to my results screen, and it's going to show me that it's working. And when it's done, it'll tell me it's successful, and I have the ability to now download this information that I've just extracted. So when I download this, what I'm going to find is, in this case, I have my OBS structure in one of my tabs and my EPS structure in another tab. So for each module that you select, you are going to get a separate tab for each one of those modules. So you can keep them separate, you know what they pertain to. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the column headers in an extraction. Now it's kind of color coded. The colors really aren't specific for P6Loader to be able to work, but what they do is they help you determine what type of information is in that column. So if we have a red background, this is indicating that this is a mandatory column that you must have in this case, an OBS sheet. Now, these orange fonts are allowing you to remap your required information. So if I wanted to rename my EAI node to Emerald, I would type Emerald in the new name column. And when I saved this and ran it back in, it would go out, it would find EAI, and it would change it to Emerald. The blue and the gray are optional fields. You don't have to have them populated, and you also don't have to have them on your sheet. So in some sheets, you have a very large amount of information. And if you wanted to, narrow that down to what you were looking for and things like that, you could certainly remove those. And you can actually remove those prior to exporting or pulling out the information. And I'm going to show you that later also. Now, the blue are items that can be edited or deleted or can be added when you are loading them back into your database. So the gray is just informational. So this is actually giving you information about, the last modifications on this particular piece of information. Now, just as showing you a different type of sheet, I'm going to click into that EPS sheet. Now I can see on the EPS sheet that I actually have 3 pieces of information that are mandatory. So depending on what module you're working with, you're going to have different requirements on mandatory information so that P6Loader can find the proper element that you are actually wanting to work with. Now I want to clean the EPS and the OBS structures up before I put them in my new database, before I load them back in my new database. And so you don't have to watch me go through all that cleanup. I actually have that already done. So you'll notice first thing in my OBS is that I have an additional column that I have added here. Now, this is just something that I've used to help me clean up the names for my columns. Some of them were all caps, some of them were lowercase. So what I've done is this is what was pulled out, and I've cleaned them up in my name. So when I load this in, I'm going to get all capitals and have a nice uniform looking OBS on those on when I have my names showing. They're all going to be capitalized. Now, I also found that in my OBS, as well as my EPS, I wanted to have a training in a sandbox area available. So they weren't in my other database that I extracted from. So I'm actually going to just add those in now. So I've added in an OBS element for that. And over in my EPS, I've also added that corresponding EPS node in there also. So I've cleaned up a portion of my EPS because I want to get this up and I want to get this running. This other stuff down here at the bottom, I'm going to clean up later and load in what I need to after it's been cleaned up. But I just want to load this top piece right now. Now, the way I can tell to P6Loader to only load down to a certain row is I can leave a blank row, and anything under that blank row, P6Loader is going to ignore. So in this case, it's only going to load rows 2 through 23. The rest of this I'll deal with later. So this is ready to load up, essentially. So I'm going to go in to P6Loader, and I have to remember that I want to put it into a different database. I have that that clean database. So I'm going to go ahead and log out, and I'm going to go and select my clean database, my new database, and I'm going to log in to P6Loader with that database. Now, my second option here is to upload. So if I select my upload area, it essentially tells me, okay, what do you want to upload? So I can go and I can browse to wherever my file is located. I can select the file, and then I can tell it to upload that file. Again, it's going to show me that it's working. It's going to give me some messages about where it is in the process, and then it's going to be completed. So if I go over into my clean database, which I have displayed in the web version, and I refresh this, what I'm going to find is that it's gone out into the database, and it is now, I now have a EPS structure that is set out for what I wanted to, including my sandbox and my training area. And I do have the corresponding OBS that's coming out also, or that has been loaded also. So a really easy way to spin up a new database if you have that need and you are, you are administrating for a database. Now, another administration piece that I like to show is one of our utilities. And what that utility is an activity roll down utility, activity code roll down utility. So if I open up my activities here, I have a project that has some issues going on. I can see that I have, a phase code, which is a global code in this case, and I really don't want it to be at that global level. Really, this belongs at an EPS level. It only pertains to a certain EPS node and the projects underneath that. But it's at the global level right now. I also have found that I have equipment numbers that have been set up. And not only are they at different names on them, but they're at different levels. So what I want to do is I want to combine these, and I want to actually put my resulting list, my combined list, at the EPS level. Specifications, again, I've ended up with two specs that have been created, and I want to combine those. And then because these are only associated with the project I'm working on, I'm going to push those down to the project level. Also, work orders shouldn't be at my global level. I want to push those to my project level. So what I can do is I can use one of our utilities that we have with P6Loader. So in this activity code roll down, I'm going to put the original name of the code that I want to roll down. I'm going to have my original scope, and then I'm going to say where I want to push that down to. Now, in this case, I am going to actually rename that code just so it's easier for us to see. It's been rolled down. And then I want to actually define where that EPS, or what EPS I want this associated with. On my equipment codes, I want to combine these two. So I have my original scope, I have my roll down scope, and because I want them combined, I'm actually going to give them the same roll down name, which is going to indicate to P6Loader to take those two lists and put them into one list, one dictionary. And again, going to tell it where it's going in the EPS. Now my specs, I'm going to combine those and push them down to my project level. So I name those the same, and then I define what project I want them to be associated with, as well as my global work order code. I'm going to push down to that project level also and tell it which project I want it to push it down into. Now this last column is defining and telling P6Loader, how do you want me to handle that original code? Do you want me to delete it, or do you want to keep it there for now? So in my case, I'm actually going to keep most of them. So they're going to be defined at both the original level as well as the new level that I've pushed them down to. Maybe I want to go out and make sure that I have reassigned, that I've put them in the right place, so that I don't have any other projects that in that EPS, or I don't have any other EPS that might need those codes. In the case of my work order, I know that that only belongs in this particular project. I can roll it straight down. I don't have to combine anything like that. So I'm just going to say I want to remove it at the global level. So I have that option to do that. So when I go to load this up, I'm going to, first of all, make sure I'm in the proper database, because remember, we were in our brand new database. I want to change this in my demo database. So I'm going to go ahead and log into my demo database. I'm going to go to where I can upload, and I'm going to select the file for that code roll down, and I'm going to upload that file. Again, it's showing me that it's working, and it's showing me what it's doing right now. It's rolling down all of my codes. Now, when I go back into Primavera, I can refresh the data because it's been changed, and I can see that they're gone. Well, makes sense because we rolled them down. They're no longer associated with those at those levels. So if I open up my EPS, I can find my new equipment code as well as my new phase code. And then at my project level, well, I know that here's my specifications, my specs, and my work order. So when I add those in, I can see that, let me get these sorted properly. I can see that my phase has been pushed down, my equipment codes have been combined, and they've been assigned to the proper project or the proper activities that they belong in. My specs, again, have been combined and assigned, and my work order has been rolled down. So you can, of course, promote codes in Primavera in P6, but you cannot demote them. And this gives you the ability to actually demote them and push them down to lower levels instead of just being able to roll them up.
Yeah, so if you administer a database, this is like life-changing, right, Sue?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not only do we have this ability on activity codes, but we also have this ability on calendars. So if you have a global calendar that really just is polluting up, doesn't belong in your global calendars. Maybe you imported a project that had an additional global calendar in it, and you want to actually maintain that calendar, but you want to make it a project calendar. You can do the same thing with your calendars. So we also have a calendar roll down utility also. So now let's look at some of the user-based types of things that you might want to be dealing with. So first of all, I'm going to actually open a project. I have a brand new project that has been created, and I am gathering information from my team. And I am using that information to actually build out and develop my new project. So I'm just going to open up a different layout here so that we can see when those come in. Now, in addition to activities and all those things that need to be developed, I'm also going to be developing out my resources that I need for my project. So I have this P6-Loader tree at the top with nothing underneath it. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to populate that also with those resources I need for my project. So if I go over into my spreadsheet and take a look at what I have in my spreadsheet and all the things that I need for this project, we can kind of talk a little bit about each piece. So in my WBS, I am building this out. I've gotten information from my team about the structure that I need and what is actually needs to be set out here. And in this, I can make it flat. I can put some hierarchy into it, so I can see that under mining and extraction and upgrader, I have some children that are going to reside at each one of those levels. So I can actually build that into my structure, my WBS structure. Now, I also have found that I am going to need a few project codes that are going to come in that I need to create for this particular project. I have a discipline, I have an area, as well as work package. So I'm going to define those. And on this next tab, I'm going to actually build out those dictionaries, start building out the values that belong in each one of those codes. On my activities, I'm ready to start building out some activities. I'm getting those ready. I'm starting to create those. Now, in this case, I have also added an additional column. And what this column is going to do is it's going to assist me in creating the name of each one of my activities. So I have a title that I've added, and I'm also going to use my project code for my area as well as my work package. So I'm going to use the functionality in Excel to build that for me. I'm going to use a concatenate and make it all uppercase. So it's going to concatenate my title, my area, and my work package, and it's going to create my activity name. Now, I don't have to do anything else with this because P6-Loader is going to take the value that is the result of the formula that I have put in here. It knows, it's smart enough to know that we want the value and not actually the formula that's going to come through on that. You can also see that I am assigning my area, my work package, those project codes that I had set out or these activity codes that I have set out on this particular, are for these activities. I'm actually going to start building out some expenses. I'm going to assign expenses to several of my activities. And in conjunction with that, I need to actually put in a new cost code or cost account structure. So I am able to build that out, put in my hierarchy, and create my cost accounts. Some of my activities require steps. I need to put some steps in those. Again, this could be very easy for you if you have activities that actually use the same steps. I can copy and I can paste those in. And then I can actually take the project or the activity ID and just copy that so it is readily available and very easy for me to duplicate those. Now, I've also found that I need a new resource calendar for this, for some of the resources that are going to be used on my project. And this calendar is going to be a rotating calendar. So 10 on and 4 off. Now, if you've ever created a rotating calendar and had to count each one of those dates and those boxes and say, okay, this is work time, and now this next day starts my 4 days off. And then you have to count those next 10 days and then the 4 days off. It's easy to mess that up. So using functionality again of Excel, I can make that a lot easier. First of all, I'm going to define my calendar. I'm going to designate what days of the week and what hours in the day that it is going to be scheduled to work. And then I set up my exceptions. So I've started out with my first day off, and I'm just going to increment that by 1 for those following days. Now, on my next set of days off, I'm actually going to use the 11th day and a formula so that these are all calculated properly. So it makes it a lot easier, a lot less counting, a lot less error in figuring out what days you should have as the days off. I've also discovered that I want a new code, a resource code developed or set up for my project. And I'm also going to populate that. Then I'm ready to essentially start building out my resources, my resource dictionary here for my project. So I'm building out each one of those, again, using the hierarchy under that P6-Loader tree that I showed you. I'm assigning that calendar that I'm creating at the same time, as well as assigning my resource codes that I need. I can also assign UDFs at the same time if that's a need that I have. Now, since we are creating things and assigning them all in the same file, essentially, I don't have to worry about what order any of these tabs are in. P6-Loader actually knows what order to create these items in order to make the assignment successful. So it knows to go out and create that calendar before it assigns it to my resource. So you don't have to worry about any of that. It's going to actually be all built in there for you. It has the smarts to handle that. Now I have my resources. I'm going to start to assign those resources to my activities. And I'm also going to start planning for those activities. I'm going to be entering some units, some costs, things like that to get those defined and set up in my project at the same time that I do the assignment. And last but not least, I'm going to need some logic in my project. So I have laid out my logic as well as if I needed any lag associated with them. And I can also set my relationship type at the same time. So a lot of information in this particular load. Now, I don't have to do this every time I set up my project. Maybe I only know what my WBS structure is at first. I can simply just load my WBS, but I wanted to show you all the different things that you can actually do when you're creating your project. So let's go and let's upload that information and create that new project. So it's going to go through, might take a little bit longer because it's doing quite a few things in there, but it's still pretty quick.
Yeah, now if you have codes and things like that, when you have a new project, you can load all that as well. So it's you can do global data with project data at the same time as well. Just
Absolutely.
like showing the resources.
Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so we're done. We've uploaded all of that information. I'm going to refresh. So here are all of my resources that have been created. There's that calendar that's been assigned on those. Everything looks good on my resources. And then if I click into my activities, I have my duration, I can see where I've added my steps. I have my logic coming through, my resources and roles, my cost accounts, as well as all of that planning information in my budgeted labor units, labor costs, expense costs, and I have my total out there also. So really, really easy to get that information from your outside team members. Maybe it's in an email. Maybe they send it to you in actually a spreadsheet format. You can copy and paste those into your P6 Loader format that you need and just load those right in. You don't have to do all of that kind of tedious tappity tap on your keyboard to manually enter all of that information. A copy and paste works really great. Now, another thing I'd like to show is how we can deal with baselines. So I have a project that I have created some baselines for, and I have found out that number one, I have some extra work that was found. So additional work that I want to account for and realize those units in my baseline and in my project as well. So I want to add it to both of those. Another thing I found out is that I need to redistribute some costs as well as some units. Now, I'm not changing my overall costs for my project. I'm just redistributing several costs and units so that they're accurate. I took this a little bit too soon, and now I have some additional information that I actually added into this. So the way I can do that is I can actually extract out baseline information from P6 or with P6 Loader without detaching it. And also I can change it without using the functionality that's actually delivered with P6, because I personally find that a little bit flaky and I don't quite trust it. I trust this because I can actually make it as accurate as possible. So I've pulled out information for my baseline. I don't need to change anything that's existing in my project. So I'm just working on that baseline one. I've pulled out this original planned labor costs. I've renamed it so that P6 Loader doesn't recognize it. I'm going to use the functionality of Excel to calculate and redistribute debit and credit my project or my activities and the costs there. Then I'm going to reload in my planned labor cost for that new value. I'm doing the same thing with my units. Now in my found work, I am actually going to load that to both my project as well as my baseline. So I'm going to realize that in both of those projects, so to speak. Now, when I'm ready to load this back in, I can save it and I can alter my baseline. I can modify my baseline. So let's go again and upload my baseline changes. And we'll see what that looks like when it's complete. There we go. Going to refresh. Now I have my added work. So I can see that this was my added work. I have a different code that's assigned to it. And then as I scroll down, I can see that I have my differences coming through on my redistribution on all four of my activities that I needed to redistribute that. And I hate it when Primavera blanks those out. There we go. So I have it very easily. I have it changed. It's changed in my baseline and it's updated. So really easy to actually work with your baselines with P6 Loader because we can bring that information out for you. Now, the last thing I want to kind of visit on the user side is updating projects. So I have two projects here. that are ready to go. They're very simple projects, but they are projects that I want to get an update on. They're in flight now, and I am going to request that the progress be reported on them. Now, I can do this, and I can actually provide a P6-Loader sheet for my users that are going to be updating this project. So I'm going to go back to my extraction screen, and I'm going to show you how you can actually pick and choose what you're going to pull out to provide for those people who are going to update, because you don't want to confuse them with a bunch of extra columns in there that they don't need to deal with. So in my case, I have actually created a definition that I can save and keep for later use. So I've created this, and I'm going to utilize it again. So I can select that loader definition and load it in. Now I can tell that that's what is applied here because I've got my definition now says project updates. So what I've done here, and I'm going to show you, is I have utilized this little edit, this little pencil next to my activities. Now, when I open that up, I can see that I have all the available columns on my left-hand side that I'm not going to extract. On the right side, I'm actually going to just extract a handful of columns so that it's ready to just provide to the person who's going to be doing the updates. I can save that, and as well, I have actually used this, and I'm going to actually just search for these. I've saved it for those particular project, and let me look for the right project here. So I have selected the two projects that I want to have updated, and these have all been saved in my definition. So I can just simply set it up once. I can go out and then for each update, extract the information I need. So I'm going to go ahead and extract this, and I'm going to show you what that sheet's going to look like when I download it.
Yeah, so as Sue is letting you know, that's a new version, a new feature.
Oh, yes.
In this version. It's a big one, so that
Yes.
you can save and reuse the definitions.
Right. And you can decide which ones you want to come out. Now, in my case, what I didn't do is I didn't say I don't want to include any codes, or I don't want to include or any UD, or I did not include UDS. Now, the reason I didn't do that is perhaps there is a code that you want to use to narrow down what you send out to a person. So maybe you have a department code, and you're going to filter by your engineering department, and you're only going to give them the activities that are assigned to that engineering department. So I can pick and choose and decide what I'm going to actually send out. Then I could copy and paste it into a different sheet and send it. So what I've brought out here are just the items that I want that are pertinent for my update. So I've got my status, I've got my percent complete, I have an area for my actual start and my actual finish dates so that they can populate those. I've also provided for them the planned start and the planned finish. So let's say it started right when it was supposed to. They can actually take it, they can copy and they can paste it. Oops, not that. Let me try that again. Copy and paste it. I just guess I just need to make that bigger. They could copy and paste it, and makes it very easy for them to do those updates. If they needed to change a date, they could just, click in there, change what they need on the date, and call it good. Now, I send this out, and I get my information back. This is what it might look like when it comes back. I have 2 completed milestones at 100% with an actual start date, as well as I have 2 activities that are in progress. I've gotten a percent complete on those, as well as a start date. Now, I can load this back in. It's already done for me. I can merely save this or use this same sheet and load it back in. Now I've added some extras to this sheet to show you some of the other things that you can use to help you update your projects. I can actually go and update my data date in my project in the same load. So I know that my data date was, in this case, June 15th of 2021. I can set my data date and load that in at the same time. Now we also have the ability to update time periods. So I call this bucket loading. So in my case, I'm going to be updating actual units for these activities. And on my earth mover, or my earthworks here, on this spread activity, I actually had some that occurred in some units that were incurred in May as well as in June. Now on this other activity, this FP spread 3, I have 3 different resources that I want to put units in for, actual units in for, in the month of June. So we have the ability to do that with P6-Loader. So you can do that bucket. You can also plan it with bucket in your buckets also. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to upload this update into or with P6-Loader. So I'm going to go to my upload again. I'm going to update these and use the information that I sent out and made it a lot easier for both me and my users. And let me get to the right place here. And I'm going to refresh this. And now I can see that I have my 2 started milestones that have been completed. If I click down into my first spread, where I had a monthly spread, I can see here are my earthworks, and I have my units that have been loaded into May as well as June. And then on my spread 3, I have each one of my resources that have been loaded in my actual units in that month of June. So you can see some of the ways. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg, really. It's too hard to show everything all at once. For that, what P6-Loader can actually help you out with. And we find that as people use P6-Loader, they find more and more things that they can utilize P6-Loader for. So before I hand it back over to Nicole, let's look and see if we have any questions, I guess.
Yeah. So we did have one
Okay.
that did come in, Sue, and it was related to what version does P6-Loader work with?
Okay, so yeah, P6-Loader can go back as far as version 6 and is compatible with anything from 6 up to the current version 20.
Yeah.
21 actually. Is 21 released? I can't remember now.
Well, we're definitely up to 20.
We're 20. Yeah.
And in 20, they did add some features, and
right.
Sue touched on them a little bit, but so resource assignment codes, roll codes.
Roll codes.
New financial periods at the project level rather than just globally across the database. So we've added all those features to version 11, this release.
Right. Okay.
So as Sue said, so before she jumps out of the software, if anyone has a question where you want to see something specific or explore something a little bit more, it would be good if you ask the question now. Just makes it easier for us to show it.
Before I hand it over.
Yeah. Maybe if you go into P6-Loader just for another second, just to touch on a few of the new features, because It's a challenge for Sue to slow this one down because there's so many things to show.
It really is. It really is.
So
So
another feature that's really interesting is the layout feature that we never give enough time to in these demos. And I'm not sure if it's set up in the newest version, but I know we use this a ton. So when we have a client that has two different databases and we make all the layouts in one database. Let's say you're in a pre-production database. Oh, it's not set up, that's fine.
yeah, it's not set up.
Okay, so it's set, so we have a pre-production database. And you make all the layouts, which can take quite a bit of time. Then you can push all the layouts, all the filters, and reports from one database to the other. I mean, that has saved me personally thousands of hours over the years of layout developments. That's a really interesting utility. So if you've got clients with multiple databases, this is a big, huge time saver. It pays for the software by itself right there. So we'll make sure we get that working, and I'm not sure if we have a mini clip on that, Sue, but if not, it would be a good one to do. And then just the XML, XCR. So we built a new tool, P6 Scrubber, in the last few years, which is even more elegant in terms of dealing with XCRs. This was kind of our starting point. It's just got a few features on how to handle XCRs, but we've got P6 Scrubber, which even is really fantastic. It lets you take an XCR that you get with one or more multiple projects and remap things. So, but we do have some functionalities on the XMLs and XCRs inside a P6-Loader that give you some functionality. Or it's a little less elegant, but so just if you do a lot of importing, we've got more than one tool to help you with those XCRs, XML functionalities. I think otherwise it doesn't look like anyone's got any questions immediately. So I'll start the wrap up. If you do have questions, please just go ahead and feel free to chat them in and or put them in the question room, and Sue can try and tackle them as I'm doing the wrap, and we'll stay on for another few minutes to deal with any questions that come up. Okay, so we got a very quick look, but I think Sue was able to give you a good feel for the variety of things that you can do with P6-Loader. It is the tool we've sold the most of at Emerald because the benefits, I think, are pretty far-reaching. In terms of time, you can save so much time just building schedules. We've got clients who've used it on turnarounds specifically to build work package lists, equipment lists, and getting your turnarounds built from scratch. It's definitely a huge time saver. As we talked about, accessibility. So we've had more than one client where we had to rebuild their P6 database, especially if the database is 5, 10, 15 years old. Being able to deal with mass baseline what's the right word? Hooking baselines back up after you've cleaned up projects and things like that. When you're migrating, maybe up to the Oracle Cloud, Oracle SaaS Cloud, or to new environments. We've saved tons and tons of time on those types of things. In terms of building integrations, so we have a client who's built integrations to 4 or 5 legacy systems that didn't make sense to do a full point-to-point integration because they were going to decommission some of these tools after a year, 2 years, that sort of thing. So integrations, there's a nice sweet spot for P6-Loader to help you build integrations, use them as integrations. It can also just be the starting point to develop integrations. So you map things out, make sure they work with P6-Loader, and then you can go on to do the programming. So we've done a lot of different things on that side of the house. In terms of projects and dealing with security, there's a lot of functionality in older versions that the XCR security is not what it needs to be. We've got to give people high-level security. If they've closed that gap on version 20, another feature they've added on version 20 to try and allow people to import without having such high security. So these have been some of the benefits on different layers to it. When it comes to dealing with reporting, keeping user-defined and codes clean, Sue did show you the easy use there, and we've done a lot of work to help our clients keep their databases clean on codes and UDFs. Some people have called us up to do a P6-Loader as a service just to load dictionaries. So they didn't have a need to use the tool for the subscription length, the minimum subscription length. So we can also do things as a service to load things up if you've got a smaller need. So we've done that type of thing. And yeah, I think that covers some of the examples. In terms of customer feedback, we've got a lot of user case studies on our website, and this gives you some ideas on the way people have used it. And when she said that they found new things to use it for that we hadn't expected, this is quite true. When we roll out with a client, there's a certain need that they're filling, and then they find other uses to it because the tool is it's able to access so many different points inside P6. So we've got a lot of wonderful client feedback, and these are just some food for thought ideas for your team. I urge you to take a look at some of the case studies on our website. I think it'll give you some ideas of how you can use it. We've got a lot of different clients using the tool. Several in shipbuilding, and because they just have so much data to maintain, many in construction, many in oil and gas, of course, and mining and so on. So we've got a lot of case studies that you can explore, and definitely reach out to us if there's some things that you want to understand better to see if there's a need that we can fill within your organization. Now, if there are some things that you think you've seen that look interesting, certainly go ahead and let us know. We don't, if there's some ideas you want to explore, you want us to call you, we're happy to do that. If you just want to stay on the mailing list, absolutely good there too. If you have something that you've seen that looks very, very helpful to you, let us know if you want to explore pricing and solutions and things like that. Or if there's someone else that you think that we should reach out to because you see something of interest. So go ahead and use that. That just helps us understand how we can best keep in touch and what would make sense for you. So feel free to answer that. And that just helps us make sure we're doing what we can for you. Okay, so I don't see any immediate questions. If there are, go ahead and chat them in. But thanks so much for joining us for the last hour and a little bit. We've been a full service Primavera partner for 27 years, and we've got many tools that we'd love for you to explore. I mentioned P6 Scrubber for importing. Sue showed you some ideas on updating, but we've got updating tools. Taps and caps are two tools that you can explore that go beyond P6-Loader. They're a little more self-service, one with barcoding, one with a simple grid format. So we've got a lot of tools, P6 Calculator, to help you do all sorts of other functions inside P6, P6 QA, which I'll be having a webinar in 2 days on to help you critique schedules. So we try and build tools that bring value to what you're already doing in P6 and to help make what you do in P6 easier for your team. Also to leverage the team that are not necessarily P6 experts, but they are closest to what's going on the project. So please feel free to explore our tools and our services. And of course, one of our key services from the very beginning of Emerald's startup has been integration. So that's really why we have a lot of time-saving functions that we've tried to build in to our tools over the years. So yeah, if you have some questions, go ahead and chat them in. We'll try and address them in the next few minutes. And if not, certainly feel free to reach out to Donna. Donna, if you want to throw your email in there so that people closer to you in the Philippines can reach out that way, or Sue's email is there as well. And we'd love to explore how we can help you more. Because we know P6 has so many fantastic functions that people aren't always able to take advantage of because they just feel like it's going to be too much data to maintain, and they don't realize that we may have some solutions that can help fill some of the gaps that you're finding in and help you take better advantage of P6 overall. Okay. So thanks so much for joining. I'll stay on for another minute or two, but we'll stop the recording here. Thank you.